But at any rate, it's great to meet you. Thank you for reaching out on Instagram. I love we make stories for a new day. I've already had it on the show, so I'm so glad you reached out. Typically, I don't play it until I talk to the artist, so I'm glad that we've coordinated and it's all happening.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So before we get into the album, I want to know, for I know we're all getting tired of talking about COVID, but it was a big deal surviving the pandemic, especially as a musician. How did
Yeah.
you get through that time period and how did it change the way that you do things now?
Well, I was in school during that time period and I was living at my parents' house. So that's like the general context of kind of what was happening. I was in grad school. And for me, getting through it was really a matter of trying to keep growing. I think that's often what keeps me alive now, like even outside of the pandemic, but trying to find ways to keep growing, which was challenging because for me, a lot of the ways that I tend to grow by performing with other people, that process of learning things from that. So that was in a lot of ways taken away. So it was like, how can I learn from listening to music and finding a new love of literally just listening to music again? Because sometimes I get busy, I don't get to do it all the time. So that was like one thing I fell in love with. Just how can I love other people's playing even more and get inspired by it? And just all the really amazing ways that I and many other people were able to connect. So that was like going for walks all the time,
Yep.
including doing that with family. I had a thing with a friend who lived in Long Island at the time where we were running and we would like post our runs on the same app that we could see it each other. And we were trying to beat each other. It was every other day.
Yeah.
So we were like, okay, we're going to do a mile, but we have to do it under 9 minutes. And then the next month was, okay, we're going to do 2 miles, but we got to do it under 12 minutes, whatever it was.
Yeah.
So I get it. I guess I sometimes I light up under challenges in general. And I think that was a time when it sort of forced me and all of us to push even harder to do the things that we were already doing, like making music or or exercising or whatever. We had to go even harder just to get to the same level.
So talk to me about this album. Talk to me about how you artistically put this together.
Yeah, so this album was recorded just about a year ago, and the songs that are featured on the album, I wrote 9 of 11 of them, and so they've been written. The songs have been written since like 2016. Most of the songs were written in the last few years, though. And it goes through different stories that are important in my own life. Like the first song I wrote, which is on there, is It Always Rains in Michigan. And that song I wrote after a 6 day rainstorm when I was living in Michigan going to school there. So that's all these songs have like really specific tie-ins to either a very specific moment in my life, but also they have tie-ins to just general things that many people experience, like COVID, pandemic, and isolation, and my perspective on how to take that intense time and horrible time in many ways and turn it into a very positive sort of a new day moment or spirit. And so that's also the other huge message of the album is like how can we take these negative spaces or moments in our lives, turn them into positivity, and then do that together especially in today, which is such a politically divisive and just a pretty divided context. So how can we do it together and learn the fruits and the beauty of that together?
So how did a kid from Montclair, New Jersey get into this jazz world? Take me back to the beginnings. How did you get fascinated by music and more specifically, how did it evolve into a jazz career?
Yeah, so um, I was the first year in high school, and it was my decision to do I want to study music sort of just in public school, or I heard about a couple of these programs in town, and um, I was a little nervous about the high school music program based on what I'd heard. So I was like, okay, let me try to study this outside. So Jazz House Kids popped into my life. That was the one I went with. I felt like they were gonna help me grow as a drummer. And all of a sudden, I didn't really know anything about jazz. So I was like, whatever, let's just try this thing. And then, come a year later after studying in that program, which is based in Montclair, New Jersey, where I'm from, I got this crazy passion. All these people who were my age or maybe 2 or 3 years older than me were like some of the most serious jazz musicians in the country. And I was around them, and it just showed me that you could, if you work hard and you study and listen and learn all this beautiful music and the art form behind it, you can go all these places and do all these cool things. And the idea of mentorship, where you have someone older who's gonna like talk to you for 2 hours about their life, just because that was all that was foreign mostly to me. And so I fell in love with that. And then I did that, and I did a bunch of other programs, which ended up leading to Michigan State, because one of the people who worked at Jazz Lincoln Center recommended that I check out Michigan State, and that was one of the programs that I did, was the youth orchestra through Jazz Lincoln Center. So then I sort of toured Michigan State, and it's far away. Everyone told me I should just go to a Manhattan school, Juilliard or MSM. But I just fell in love with the culture there, and it reminded me of my family that lived there, and just like really good-hearted. There's a certain thing that that school culturally has to offer that very few places I have felt ever offered. So that's sort of what took me to Michigan after I fell in love with jazz through Jazz House Kids and through the youth orchestra at Jazz Lincoln Center and all these other programs that I was involved with.
Who runs the program at Michigan State?
It's run by an incredible bassist. It was started by an incredible bassist as well, named Rodney Whitaker.
Yeah, okay, okay. Because I've talked to some people that have been involved, and they've always lauded it as a wonderful program. So that's right, Rodney. So what was the first live jazz show you saw that blew you away, that made you think, I want to either indulge more or I want to be on that stage?
Well, this one's a good story. The first jazz show that I actually remember at all, saying, "Okay, I want to hear jazz," was Benny Golson at the Jazz
Wow.
Standard in New York City.
Wow.
And he told stories of hearing John Coltrane, or not hearing, hanging out and
Yeah.
practicing with John Coltrane all the time. Like John Coltrane would come to his parents' house to go eat dinner, then they'd practice a bunch of hours in Philadelphia, stuff like that.
Benny came to town. Bobby Watson brought him to town probably,
Uh-huh.
I think this might have been pre-pandemic, 19, and he was still in his upper 80s. But man, it was so, I remember when he came up on stage, it just blew me away. Those two were playing their horns, and it was like, wow. I mean, it was, because he's deep, man. I mean, that cat's been around everybody. So, and just having that level of acumen at that age, because blowing a horn is different than other things. And when you get to a certain age, there's been a lot of players that just can't do it, but he did it all the way up into his, late 80s, early 90s. So,
Yeah.
so every day you wake up, what is it that you look forward to the most about being a professional musician? What do you like the best about this process?
That's a good question. Um, I think the new things that I experience. So, to give you an example, I work at a private school called the Calhoun School every
Yeah.
day I teach one class a day. And the food program, I was told, was started by Derek Jeter's personal chef, Chef Bobo, who's no longer there, but the concept and the intensity and the seriousness of the food is still there. And I eat new foods or new ways of preparing foods every day at that school.
Wow.
Um, or this week, um, I played at a Japanese spot and I tried a bunch of, new foods, new things, new people. I meet new people almost every day.
Yeah.
Some are musicians that I'm meeting. That's maybe the most common. But other times it's just, it could be a finance bro. It could be an ex-government official. Uh, I mean, just so many, an actor, so many. I feel like I'm invited into worlds and spaces that I would never get invited to.
Yeah.
And even just conversations, just finding my way to beautiful conversations about anything, just learning all the time and experiencing. It feels like it's like a passport. I get to
Yeah.
like leave my apartment and just see the world in the way that I want to, and that's one of the main things I love about
Why do you love jazz?
it. I love jazz because it feels good. And there's a constant form of adventure in it, because most jazz music has a good amount of improvisation, not all, but most. And when I'm playing it, it feels like there's both the solid like tradition that's there, and yet a huge path that we're also forging at the same time. And I love this duality and the idea that you're exploring always.
So at the end of the day, everyone has a perception of you, family, friends, fans, everyone that you know, but you run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
That's easy,
Yeah,
easy question. I get this all the time. Uh,
in the exact same manner.
exactly. Yeah, on Zoom. Yeah. Um, well, uh, I think I think I'm someone who's positive, who finds a lot of humor even in the darkest of things, who wants to brighten up other people's lives, who's very caring about other people, and always trying to consider what they are thinking or feeling. Um, and I'm also very passionate and very conscientious of purpose in my own life and other people's lives. So for me, it's all about how can I play music and help someone else or affect someone else in the room in hopefully a positive way. And not only just play, but also teach and compose music. And that's kind of the way I found meaning in my own life is to play music and try to get better at it every single day and try to help other people in whatever way that's possible that I can possibly do.
So, if anyone wants to pick up a copy of We Make Stories for a New Day, catch you live, any of the good business in your world, where can they go?
I think the best place to go is my website, which is zachjazzdrums.com. That's Zach Jazz Drums. And that's also my Instagram handle, and everything online is connected to that. And I have a link on my website that shows you everything about the album, which has videos of it has the album teaser. It's got the single, which is on a video. It's got a link to the Bandcamp. It's got my email, so if you want a signed copy, you can do that. It's got photos and a bio. It's got everything on there.
I love the album. I urge everyone to run out and grab it. Thank you so much for taking a minute out today to talk about the album, your life and music. Best of luck with everything.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, you bet.